Another week in the books, guys. Is it just me? Like 2024 is flying.
It is, dude. It's. I feel like, man, I am just all over the place, and it's already mid-June or almost mid-June. And what episode number is this?
45. We got to do something really big for 50, but it's been a crazy week, guys. Trump was just indicted a week ago. We're recording on a Friday. He was just indicted a week ago, but already so much has happened since then. I mean, he's raised like 200 million, right? And then so much other business stuff going on. Like Walmart announces that their store managers can make 500,000 a year. That was huge this week. Nvidia, they just did their 10-for-1 split this week. We had some other cool news too. Team USA beat Pakistan in cricket, of all things. First female president in Mexico. That was huge.
Men go mad.
He's gone mad.
Madman.
You're mad.
The man's mad.
Madman.
I'm mad.
Salim, how much Nvidia stock do you have now?
Man, I did sell a couple most recently. Had to go pay for this. I don't know if you've been following me, but I ended up in Spain for a vacation and it cost me a pretty penny, so I had to sell some stock to balance my budget a little bit. But I got a few left. I think we will, of course, see a market shift and market growth in Nvidia as we go into this split that's going to happen very, very soon. But it's like, not to go on a tangent on Nvidia, but like I've been at 3 conferences and I got one more coming. And I'm in tech, as everybody knows. And everybody has a partnership with NVIDIA. You cannot go on stage and talk about AI and then not talk about NVIDIA. Cisco did it. Nutanix did it. RSA, there were like hundreds of them at RSA that talked about it. And then I'm headed to HPE, Discover, Aruba, and I guarantee you, actually, the CEO of NVIDIA is actually one of the keynotes. So there you go, 444. At every conference that I've been to has NVIDIA and somewhere of the conversation.
Who's got GameStop stock? That's been the story I've been following this week.
Dude.
Yeah, that felt pretty bad too, huh?
How is that still a thing? How is that still a thing? And why are we not doing anything about it?
That's a whole other storyline. Roaring Kitty coming back. He was planning this whole live stream at noon today to try to shoot up the stock, and then GameStop ended up selling a crap ton of their stock at the peak right now. And then that just I think floored his entire plan. But it's crazy. This is like I'm telling you, there's going to be a whole other version of dumb money that's going to come out that's just going to continue to follow this story. It just never ends.
Yeah, that would actually be a really fun episode to talk about, is how these like micro communities get built because of these random influencers that pop up. Roaring Kitty is one of them, right? And so people have still been, people were talking about him at a really peak over a year ago, but people who followed him along have still stayed with him, and it's really cool how these small communities get built. But that would be a fun episode. Today, though, we have a really fun episode. Listeners, y'all gonna learn today. All right, so we're talking about product market fit. And specifically, we're talking about how companies reposition their products to fit the market. So this episode is going to have a lot of those facts, right? Like those dad facts, or facts that you can share with your next Tinder date. You'll probably be ghosted by her still, but whenever she shares that fact again, she'll think of you. So channel your inner Ted Mosby, everyone. Let's do this. All right. So round 1, we're talking about foods. So I love this topic because I've always wondered this, like, how did certain foods get their name? Like coconuts as an example, like I can't think of a different, more perfect name for the coconut when you look at it, and it just seems so perfect, right? But surprisingly, marketers didn't name it. This was actually done by Portuguese sailors. They when they arrived and they saw coconuts, they named it that because the 3 holes on the coconut look like an awkward smile, and so coco means grinning face, and so that's how they came up with the name. But once consumerism started and marketers started getting their hands on things, it started getting applied to foods. And so some of your favorite foods, you guys wouldn't believe it, were named by marketers. With that being said, I have a question. I want to pose a question to both of you guys. When you go to a fancy restaurant and you're ordering fish, tell me what you're ordering.
I'm going to go mahi-mahi. Just sounds fancy.
One of my favorite dishes at a certain fine dine is like this steamed sea bass.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm so glad you guys said that because I got stories for both of you guys on this one. So mahi mahi was originally called dolphin fish, and the problem was that people were not ordering dolphin fish because they were kept getting it. They were associating it with the lovable dolphin, but it's so different, obviously, right? So people were thinking they're eating other mammals and things like that. So it was to avoid the confusion. Dolphin fish was renamed mahi mahi. When you order mahi mahi, it sounds fancy. There's a perceived value that this is tropical and everything, but this was a marketer's touch, and it's there is a meaning behind it. In Hawaii, it means strong. The word mahi means strong, so mahi mahi is strong, which is pretty cool. And then for sea bass, Salim, so the Chilean sea bass actually had a really ugly name for it. And I want to ask you, if I was to tell you that you love the Patagonian toothfish whenever you go to a fancy restaurant, does your perception change?
I'm not paying for $60 for a Patagonian's toothfish, but I'm aware of that's what it's called. But yes,
Well, it sounds like an evil fish, like Patagonian toothfish, like that will give me nightmares, right? So this it is so unappealing of a name. They had to change it. Chilean sea bass just sounds romantic. There's something about it that just rolls off your tongue. And that's why it's become a really popular dish in some of your nicest restaurants across the U.S. But it's really just to try to demand a higher price point as well. So that was the marketer's touch on that. Now, in the transitioning to another segment of foods, we got some fun fruits to talk about. So I think we were all around when they were always called prunes. You guys remember like prune juice and prune juice is still there, but like you would think of prunes and you think the like whenever you in a go number 2, right? You need a clear system and you go have some prunes. Well, that they wanted to up the consumption of prunes, so they renamed it dried plums. So while dried plums just seems like your friendly plum fruit that all of us love to eat, and by renaming it that, it obviously multiplied the consumption of it. It just escaped the elderly connotations of like the health remedies around it and everything. So that was a pretty cool one. A fruit that I never liked as a kid, and I don't know why, it just freaked me out, the hair on it and stuff, even though but was kiwi, right? Cute fruit, right? But Samir, any guesses what it was called before?
I don't know, and I'm afraid to find out.
Well, it's still called kiwi, and if you ever want to order kiwi, you're not going to order it by its original name, the Chinese gooseberry. So marketers, when they got their hands on this, they took the Chinese gooseberry and named it after the lovable kiwi bird from New Zealand. And it's, it just feels like such a cute name compared to Chinese gooseberry. And now kiwi, which is grown really widely in New Zealand, is a favorite for a lot of fruit eaters out there. So those are the two food ones that I wanted to share with you guys. I thought like that was pretty cool to share. And listeners, please tell us what you guys think about these fruits. If you guys know of any others, just comment.
how does that even come to market? Like, I get what boggles me. Like, hey, okay, you got this product that may or may not be mass produced or mass delivered to the consumers, but like, who gets in the room and says, hey, look, you can't sell this as like saber tooth whatever, or like, what is, how does that, like, similar to you work with a lot of product stuff like this. Like, does this come into a conversation like, hey, the name of this product just doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, it usually takes an outside's perspective to come to that recommendation, right? Like if you're around this product for too much, if you're part of the internal team, you're probably not, you're kind of blinded, right? There's a little bit of bias already there. But if an external partner, say an agency, comes in and says, we think that there's a different an opportunity to change what this brand really means, what it stands for, what it's called, What you do is you put it through testing and you just let the data convince the brand that this is what needs to change. And it's a widely known concept. You'd be surprised at how many brands don't do it. It's really like it's not a foreign thought, right? I think all of us can conceptually understand that you should test something before you put into market. You should validate that what you're trying to put into market will work with your target audience. Very simple to understand, but you'd be surprised at how many brands really struggle with actually doing it. And it's sometimes they don't want to spend the money to do it. Sometimes they don't want to wait. They're impatient. They just want to launch it and then they can correct it along the way. It's not always the best strategy. Awesome. Cool category, man. I'm gonna take us into round two, which is all about consumer tech. And I think some of these are gonna feel a little bit obvious, but I'm gonna double click a little bit into each and maybe we learn something together. But first one I'm talking about is Meta. I think this was made huge waves on this rebrand, right? We're talking about product market fit, and this was Facebook turning into Meta, or creating Meta as the parent company, right? And what this exactly, I think it's too early to tell what exactly this Meta rebrand will be considered in the history books. I think people all kind of felt differently about it, but it did well for three reasons, right? It committed to moving the brand identity into a new chapter, right? Facebook was a product, not the company. And then that really opened the doors for their brand to start exploring new avenues, right? Number two, it came with the reorganization of the company around its new brand goal, and that was the metaverse, right? That where they wanted to zone in on the metaverse. They felt like that was the space they wanted to double down on to continue to expand. They wanted to get deeper in innovating into the metaverse, and Facebook is a part of what Meta's mission is, but it's not the product. Then the third, Meta can now have more authority over its offerings. With this rebrand into Meta, anything new they are now producing, they can now have a little bit more ownership of that because they are fully focused on the metaverse. They think that is the growth pillar of the industry, and anything Meta related, Meta lowercase m, should be brought to you by Meta uppercase M. And they wanted to build more of that affinity and be the category leader in all things metaverse. The second example is the one that we've debated a lot, Twitter to X. All right, controversial, but in fact a rebrand that was likely detrimental. 18 months since Musk's takeover, and daily app users in the US decreased by 23%. Valuation dropped by $3 billion. Forrester says that almost half of the people on the platform thought changing the name was a mistake. And YouGov says 2/3 of users reacted negatively to the rebrand. But we're talking about repositioning for market fit. So what did it do? And that is, it opened the gate to X, the super app, right? Elon Musk is obsessed with making X the super app. And Twitter already had an existing established brand identity, and almost to a point where Musk thought it was going to hurt his vision of having a super app. That Twitter was only thought about as one thing. And his plan all along is to get this X, the super app of many things. So we can debate about whether the move was right or wrong. We saw users come and go, advertisers leave, all that. But if the goal was to turn this around and reposition Twitter to fit this vision of a super app, X did it. X is there. We are neutral. We have a blank slate, a clean slate to help get there. And then the last one I'll talk about is YouTube, formerly called TuneIn. Now, if you literally think about TuneIn being positioned as more of an on-demand video platform, right? You tune in whenever you want to find whatever video content you want to watch. And this is in the area of when you had over-the-air antennas and you had to watch the TV guide to figure out what's playing. Then TuneIn realized that their main proposition was not about viewing on-demand video, but enabling you to be the creator and sharer of video. And that's where obviously YouTube came about and is now one of the most successful businesses out there, not even just in tech. So we really think about repositioning TuneIn, which was from a video watching standpoint, to where YouTube was now a new position of enabling creatorship. And that is where YouTube really thrived, and everyone now is a YouTuber, including us.
Well, tune into YouTube must have been early on, right? Like it's like kind of like Air Bed and Breakfast to Airbnb. Like they made that shift way before. But when it comes to Meta, I remember how I perceived the rebrand, and I get it. Like they were trying to position to everything metaverse. But that's felt like at the time the hot topic to talk about. Like that felt like maybe just a I hate using this word, but like a fad at the time, because I'll tell you right now, we are not talking about NFTs. We are not talking about the metaverse. People aren't buying property there like they were at the time, but we are all talking about AI. And it almost makes you wonder is like, are there going to be people who are going to take this AI phase and then rebrand their whole software, or, it's with other things, right? So, do you guys foresee that happening? I mean, Salim, you're in the tech space. Like, do you see any companies potentially considering rebrands with incorporating AI as part of their identity?
So let's talk about two things. First, I'm going to touch on the metaverse thing because I follow that quite a bit, and the idea of Meta, right? So the idea was with Meta is that metaverse was supposed to take off, and Meta would be the leading brand into that, just like Samir said. What eventually happening was that the revenue potential wasn't there. Right, the where the money was making, like you could still see, like there's companies that have Roblox, is I think Roblox, and then you have somebody's getting paid to be like the store clerk at a virtual
IKEA
store somewhere still today.
Yeah.
Still think today.
IKEA.
Who was it?
They're hiring 10
IKEA.
Roblox
Yeah.
users to be sales associates inside of an IKEA at Roblox.
Perfect. Yeah. So like that. When you're a publicly traded company and the investors see that you're diving in money into this concept that's just losing billions of dollars a year, you're gonna have to shift, and that's exactly what happened with Meta, right? They shifted. Now Meta is now more like a holding company, and if you look at the structure that's set up as an organization, it basically owns these assets, and then it allows them, kind of going back to Samir's original point about Meta, where it's allowing them to become kind of a holding company and create new products and services, then be able to distribute it across all platforms, or whichever platforms are best for them, right? WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook. So I think in the long run, it worked out for them. It wasn't the intention, but again, it's basically a rebrand of its rebrand, right? It's a very much of a rebrand, which leads me into this conversation around AI. And you are seeing today a lot of companies, and I say a lot of companies, rebrand their products and services to incorporate the word AI. Because by definition, AI really is anything a human can do that a computer does. Writing code, recording audio, this is AI. This is audio. You can see our transcripts come out. These are all artificial intelligence. By definition, and it's a very simple definition, right? It is AI. So we're seeing every Tom, Dick, and Harry rebrand their product or .ai themselves to this, right? Similarly, though, as you saw, tech stocks dropped this past week. A lot of them started to go down. And what happened was, as earnings came out, companies like Salesforce and all these other companies are realizing that, hey, they've got to invest millions of dollars in these large language models to build their own AIs, right? They got to build hardware. They got to build, Cisco's going to go up, Dell's going to go up, all these other companies are going to go up because people are going to buy infrastructure. NVIDIA skyrocketing because people have to invest in this. But there's no cost structure to generate revenue from it, right? So there's not like, hey, my now software has AI, I can charge 10x. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just because it's open source data that they're pulling. So there really isn't any cost structure. So you're going to see the same sort of kind of dip in AI come very, very soon because of the way the model's set up, right? It's just that, hey, it's now that it's open source, it's kind of table stakes. You got to say it, you got to do it. You got to rebrand and add AI to your product because it's going to be there, or add a chatbot somewhere. You're going to see that dip.
I got a bonus one. We got some time I want to talk about. This one's a little bit of a tangent, but Dyson, the vacuum company. All right, now bear with me with this, okay? They used to be called DC series vacuums. So they initially labeled all of their vacuums with model numbers: DC-17, DC-18, DC-25. Right? This obviously wasn't consumer friendly. Nobody knew what it meant. So then they shifted to naming the models like Dyson V8 Animal or Dyson V12 Slim. Now, what's interesting here is that this naming convention does seem to make sense for me in the long run. I mean, look at